All right, we are just about at the 6 o'clock time, so in the interest of time, we're going to get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kate Matthews Bray. I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement here at NJIT. Thanks for joining us for the kickoff session of the Highlander Alumni Personal Growth Series. I'm really glad to welcome you to tonight's session, which will focus on the commitment to lifelong learning by developing a growth mindset. The Highlander Alumni Personal Growth Series focuses on lifelong learning, self-discovery, and skill development for individuals to achieve their full potential. Our goal through the series is to inspire and guide participants on their journey of continuous personal growth, equipping them with tools, mindset, and strategies to thrive professionally and personally. This is going to be a 5-part series that will take place virtually once a month until May. So before we jump in, I want to share some housekeeping rules of how tonight's webinar will work. When you entered, you might have noticed that your microphones are muted. We ask that you please keep your microphones muted throughout the presentation. We want this session to be interactive, and there will be times where you'll have a chance to ask questions or share comments, and we'll let you know when those times will happen. You're welcome to keep your camera and your video either on or off. It's whatever you're most comfortable with. And please feel free throughout the session to type questions or comments in the chat box. We're going to take some time at the end to answer those questions. And lastly, this session will be recorded and available on demand. Okay, now let's get started. In tonight's session, you're going to learn how to define the differences between fixed and growth mindsets, identify your own mindset characteristics, understand the value of having a growth mindset, and recognize the link between personal growth and professional development. It is now my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Dr. Michael Edmondson. Dr. Edmondson is the Associate Provost for Continued Learning at NJIT and the Vice President of Professional and Corporate Education at NJII. Dr. Edmondson also teaches as an adjunct for Humanities and Social Sciences in the College of Science and Liberal Arts at NJIT, and the graduate programs for nonprofit management at Drexel University, Goodwin College of Professional Studies. Dr. Edmondson is the author of 8 business expert press books, and his latest published book was in 2023. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to turn over this webinar to Dr. Michael Edmondson.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, everyone, for joining me. I'm going to share my screen, and then I really won't be able to see anyone. So if you have questions, as Kate said, please put it in the screen there or in the chat box, and she will read it off. So let me share my screen. And Kate, I'm assuming you can see that. Right, we all
Perfect. Good to
Great.
go.
All right, awesome. So yeah, I shrunk the window and I can't see anyone, even you, Kate. So if there's an issue, just interrupt me, Kate, and we'll get started here. So again, thank you, everyone. Michael Edmondson here, and this really is a 45, 50-minute look into a very complex, fascinating, sophisticated look into one aspect of human motivation known as the growth mindset. I've done workshops up to 4 hours on this. And, this concept has really been a part of me. This intersection of what it means to grow professionally and personally has been a part of me for quite some time. So let's jump right in here. So I'm going to blow it up full screen, and there we are. So Kate went over the objective of the entire growth series. I do want to just help everyone understand this is the type of training and so many other aspects of training that are involved in the new initiative at NJIT called the LDI, or Learning and Development Initiative. It's a joint venture between NJIT and NJII. And if you're unfamiliar with the Innovation Institute, it's a wholly owned subsidiary. It's a nonprofit corporation owned by NJIT. And so what we're doing is we're launching this major initiative to really train employees, employers, and get organizations ready for a world of constant change. So you'll be hearing a lot more about learning and development and all the professional education opportunities that fall within that. So this tonight is kind of like one sort of very small product within that entire initiative's portfolio. If you're really interested in this, I have a blog, navigatetochaos.com. It's free. There's a question for every day of the year, and a blog post related to answering that question. So that when you when you put everything into a book, it's 800 pages. I've been working on that over the last 10 years. And my latest book, Nurturing Equanimity, Building a Caring Culture, just came out. So a lot of what you're going to hear really I've talked about, I've researched, and really use it to drive my material. So a couple things to note. You should have a pen and paper ready. You will be doing an assessment of yourself. I suppose you could write on your phone. Most people probably will do that, but it might be easier to have a pen and paper. I will ask you 12 questions. You will then need to rank yourself in those 12 questions and then tally up a total and plot yourself along a continuum that is towards the end. Please ask questions in chat. It's up to Kate if she wants to interrupt me or just wait until the end. There'll be time at the end. And I've learned over the 20 years of doing workshops to put just a caveat there. Perhaps a trigger warning is the most recent nomenclature. Some of the topics that we deal with might be uncomfortable. They may be sensitive, and I have no idea of who's on this workshop, who's in front of me, if you will. So I do caution you that there might, we will look at some personal issues of the people that we're going to examine. But know that we only grow when we're out of our comfort zone. So I just want to give kind of that warning for people, as we move forward. So before we begin, some perspective. I don't think you can really jump right into a growth mindset conversation unless you provide some perspective of the world around us. So the acronym used to describe today's world is VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It's a term coined by the military in the 1980s to describe the Cold War, and then really picked up a lot of attention during the 2008 financial crisis. I'm sure some of you worked through that. And that was a very VUCA-driven time. And now we live in a world of AI, and VUCA is just kind of on steroids. So in this VUCA-driven world, when we talk about growth mindset, we need to keep certain things in mind. And this will all be available. I think Kate said, this will be available for people. I'm going to show you some slides. Everything has an annotation where I got the information from for further reading if you're at all interested in that. So here we go. First thing to keep in mind. This just came out last week. This is from the recent Gallup poll. Many of you might be familiar with the Gallup company that does a series of sophisticated polls every month and issues these great reports. So this was one that just came out. And in short, it tells us that 40% of Americans worry and 45% experience stress. And Gallup determined that by asking people, did you experience the following feelings during a lot of the day yesterday? So a lot of the day yesterday, 45% of Americans felt stressed and 40% felt worried. Now, this is really important. So we're going to, put a few things in the back of your mind. And as you can see, in 2020, right during COVID, stress and worry skyrocketed to 60%. Completely understandable during the global pandemic. It has since subsided, but it is interesting to note that, here we are in 2024. So that's 6 years. So it's 6 years of data. You're basically looking at 40 to 45% of Americans on a daily basis experience worry or stress. Life, as we all know it, and maybe we don't want to admit it, is stressful for most people. Now, the flip side to that, Gallup also in the survey identified that 52% of Americans are thriving. Now, we're not going to spend any time here really defining thriving. If you're interested in that, you look up the information, the URL is there. You can just Google Gallup poll, January 2024, and you'll see this information. But again, what I'm interested in is the trend. And this goes back all the way to 2008 when they first started investigating the percentage of Americans thriving, and it was 48. So basically, whatever that is. So in 16 years, 48 to 52% of Americans were thriving. High 59%, low of 46, generally speaking, half of Americans could be considered thriving. Couple that with, this data point, the other half are worried and stressed. and obviously there's some overlap. Even if you're thriving, you might have worry and stress in your life. But again, things to keep in the back of your mind. Third thing to keep in the back of your mind is this that came out in the fall. 62% of Americans are still living paycheck to paycheck, making it the main financial lifestyle. Right now, let's assume that some of these people that are thriving are probably living paycheck to paycheck. And we can almost certainly say with some degree of certainty that these individuals experiencing worry and stress are living paycheck to paycheck. So when I show people this data point, many people are shocked to hear that it's so high. And if you study this, though, if you study the way the American economy works, this has been going on for quite some time. Like, this isn't really shocking if you're familiar with the data. But this, again, is very important to keep in the back of our mind as we venture down this road to start talking about a growth mindset. And then finally, this is another report from Gallup. This takes a look at workers around the world. What percentage were engaged at their job? And some of you, I'm assuming, are presidents or executives of your own company. You probably manage people. And as someone that manages people at NJIT, I worry about this all the time. Are my people engaged in their work? How can I do a better job as their manager, as the leader of the business unit that I oversee? I'm responsible for their level of engagement. What can I do to make that improve? Because I know the data, and the data is terrible. So 23% of people around the world, that are working are engaged. So real quick, 40 to 45% are worried and stressed. Half are thriving. 62% live paycheck to paycheck. 23 are engaged at work. Now, I don't know if you're familiar at all with Jordan Peterson, but let's keep those four statistics in the back of our mind and just very quickly understand what he said in a speech a couple of years ago. He said, it's very hard to find your own words, and you don't actually exist until you have your own words. Life is very difficult. One of the most ancient of religious ideas that emerges everywhere is that life is essentially suffering. Now, we have data to back that up. We know that people are suffering. 62% living paycheck to paycheck. 23% are engaged in their work around the world. 40 to 45% of Americans experience worry and stress on a daily basis. So yes, there is data to back up that observation. And even if you study Buddhism, you understand the general principle, right? That life, for the most part, is centered around suffering. And it is how you manage that suffering that's going to determine how you succeed in life. Now, as we start this conversation about a growth mindset, you need to understand, please understand, that the people we're going to talk about in a few minutes, in a few seconds, they experienced worry and stress. They had periods of time when their lives were not thriving. They lived paycheck to paycheck. They lacked engagement at what they were doing. They searched for their own voice and they suffered. But yet they figured out a way to translate their dreams into reality, and some did it over and over and over again. So please understand that self-awareness is key here. And why I've been devoting over 10 years of my life studying this is I have learned so much in studying how people navigated the chaos of life, navigated the suffering, navigated the worry, the stress, the lack of money. And when I talk to people today, and I teach oral presentation on Tuesday nights at NJIT. And I understand people are worried and stressed. I get it. But I also know that people with those exact same feelings and those same financial concerns were able to figure out a way to translate their dreams into reality. And it's hard work. I mean, this iceberg, illustration here, all you see is the success. Some of the people we're going to talk about tonight, you know them. You've heard their names. You don't know if you probably don't know anything about how they got to where they got to be. You see the iceberg above the surface. That's great. Do you know how many hours, lonesome hours, they bounced the basketball, painted, wrote, worked 2 or 3 jobs? How many sacrifices, rejections, firings? How many, times they declared bankruptcy? All these things you do not see. So if there's one takeaway tonight, I want it to be this, that when you're seeing someone that's successful, and you define success however you want, if it's on a late night talk show, if it's an actor, an actress, is it's a ball player, it's a chess player, it's a ballerina, whoever it is, just stop and ask yourself, I wonder what it took for that person to get there. And then realize you don't know. You probably don't know. And so what I've been doing is spending the time over the last 10 years looking at beneath the surface. So this is a reminder that having a growth mindset, developing the self-awareness to have a growth mindset, is free. It doesn't cost anything. It just doesn't. There's absolutely no charge for you to sit back at night, during the day, wherever, to say, I wonder what I need to do to get one step closer to translating my dream into reality. There's no magic pill. There's no mobile app. Contrary to the title of the book, there is no secret. It's a long haul and grind. And you have to decide if you're willing to do it. So the concept of the mindset actually started from a psychologist, Carol Dweck, who just back in 2006 published this. She had an interesting experience in elementary school, which kind of like started her on the path of researching human motivation. Many of you are familiar with IQ, intelligence quotient. And in 6th grade, and she's 77 now, or 79, however old she is. So this is many decades ago. In 6th grade, the teacher set the students, not in alphabetical order, but in order of their IQ score. And the students with the highest IQ in Carol Dweck's 6th grade class, could raise the American flag, could clean the erasers, could do fun things that 6th graders want to do. And lo and behold, that left an imprint on Carol Dweck, because through her research over the decades, in short, and again, we could spend 2 hours just talking about her research in and of itself and its impact on children and individuals, what she discovered that IQ isn't really a strong determinant of success. And there's a whole realm of research out there to support her. But what she realized is that this thing called a growth mindset, juxtaposed to a fixed mindset, is really the paradigm by which you should be looking at the world. And the fixed mindset and the growth mindset dichotomy is not a good versus bad. I want you to please understand that. I know plenty of people that have fixed mindsets. They're not bad people. They're lovely human beings, caring people, compassionate people. They just think differently than I do. And that's okay. And once I discovered this in 06 and really started thinking about it over the years, my relationships really improved, because I understood my mindset better than I ever did. But more importantly, I understood those around me and their mindset. And instead of me fighting with them, I helped them realize, yes, that's your way of thinking, and my way of thinking is different. And we are good friends. That's just the way it is. So this is really critical. I think understanding this is not a good versus bad. And I think early on when I would do workshops, I probably didn't make that clear. And over the last few years, I've started to very much emphasize this is not good versus bad. This is just growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And in essence, all you really need to understand is one mindset loves failure, loves challenges, loves feedback, loves to try new things, doesn't get frustrated, can keep moving forward over the decades, believes that anything is possible, believes you can train your brain. believes you can learn anything. And the other mindset doesn't believe in any of those things. And that's okay. That's okay. So growth mindset versus fixed mindset. One final time. I know some people came in there. This is not a good versus bad. I want to make sure that is absolutely clear. So two quick assessments here. I'm going to give you two quotes. The first is from George Bernard Shaw. People are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I do not believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances that they want. And if they cannot find them, make them. Now, you have just reacted to that quote, and how you reacted kind of gives you some insight as to whether or not you have a growth or a fixed mindset. So the growth mindset says, I never blame my circumstances. The fixed mindset says, well, sometimes life is unfair. Boo-hoo, woe is me. Circumstances dictate my life. The growth mindset says, I don't believe in circumstances. The fixed mindset says, it is what it is. Oh my God, I hate that phrase. Circumstances are beyond my control. I can't do anything about it. Okay, well, yeah, you can't do anything about that, but you can certainly do something about how you react to that. It's a whole other conversation. I have the capacity to create my own circumstances and take responsibility for my life. I have little to no capacity to change or improve my life situation. I don't know if you know people like that. I do. I know lots of people like that. Fixed versus growth, not good versus bad. All right, we're going to take a look at the second one from Howard Schultz, technically not the founder of Starbucks, but the one man that was able to make it the global phenomenon that it is. I believe life is a series of near misses. A lot of what we ascribe to luck is not luck at all. It is seizing the day and accepting responsibility for your future. It's seeing what other people don't see and pursuing that vision. One of the exercises I do, like if this was a 2 or 4 hour workshop, you'd have to go off by yourself and write your life vision. And let me tell you, people struggle with that. They associate their life vision with their career. Well, I want to be CEO. I went to corner office. I'm like, no, that's your career vision. What is your life vision? Like, who do you want to become? Right? You have to ask yourself, like, what is your paradigm for human development? And if you don't know that, I think it's going to be a struggle. Like, who do you want to be? Joan Didion, the great American author, said, I already said goodbye to a few people I used to be. Yes, yes. I'm sure most of you are not the same that you were when you were 18 years of age. And if you know that inherently, then in 10 years, you know you will be different. So who do you want to be in 10 years? And what do you need to do to work towards that vision of who you are, right? A lot of work. This is all a lot of work. The growth mindset says, I remain open to new opportunities so I do not miss them. The fixed mindset is that if it's meant to happen, it will happen. No, you make it happen. You figure out a way to make it happen. I make my own luck. Luck is the intersection of preparedness and opportunity. Are you ready when the opportunity presents itself? And if you're not ready or if you're not looking, opportunity is just going to drive by. And that is your fault. That is your responsibility. You were not on the lookout for the opportunity. What you'll do, though, to settle with yourself and not blame yourself, is you'll blame life, right? Luck is just that, luck, and I have no control over it. I take full responsibility for my life and creating my future. Growth mindset fixed. I can only seize the day if the circumstances permit it. And finally, growth. I am able to create and pursue multiple visions. The fixed mindset says I have a vision, but life gets in the way. How many dreams do you have? This thing of, I've got to go to my dream college to get the dream major, to get the dream GPA, to get the dream internship, to get the dream job, marry the dream person, get the dream house, and have a dream life. I don't. Do you have one dream? Do you have one dream job? I don't understand. What happens if AI just kicks your job to the curb? Do you just have one dream? I don't really understand that concept of one dream. I have many, many dreams. Ted, call me Ted, the founder of CNN, Ted Turner, in his autobiography called Call Me Ted, now probably 10, 12 years old, he tells the story when he was a teenager. His father came home one day and said to him, Son, you need as many dreams as you need 2 lifetimes to achieve, because I have achieved everything I've ever wanted, and I don't know what to do. And shortly thereafter, Ted Turner Sr. committed suicide. And when I read that, I actually stopped and put the book down because it kind of took my breath away. I didn't know that. And really, like, I have told that quote almost in every workshop I've tried to fit it in. You should have as many dreams as you need 2 lifetimes to achieve. That way, you're always working towards something. Always, always. So that's a warm-up exercise. Now we're going to get into the mindset characteristics. Kate, I want to take a 3-second break to get some water. Are we all good?
All good.
All right, very good.
Throughout
Very good.
this, these points, if anyone has any comments or questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And if we have any little breaks before the end, I will be sure to send them to Dr. Edmondson's way.
Thanks. I thought there was is there something in the chat now?
Just someone agreeing with one
Oh,
of
oh,
your
good.
comments.
Oh, good.
So
Very good. Well, that's good to hear. Okay,
there you
very
go.
good. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so now you're going to keep score. I'm going to go over the first one with you. So I want to learn something new. I should have gotten rid of all the time, but I want to learn something new. So during any 10-day period in your life, how would you answer that? And it could be the last 10 days, whatever. Just choose a 10-day period recently. Don't go back like 3 years. So during any 10-day period, how often do you say, I want to learn something new? And if here's another caveat I've learned over the years. If you say always, that means every single day. Now, in this scale, I'm giving you some leeway, 9 to 10. So out of a 10-day period, if you do it 9 or 10 days, you get 4 points. If you do it 6 to 8 times during a 10-day period, you get 3 points. We'll consider that often. If you do it sometimes, you actually intentionally say, I want to learn something new today. You do that 3 to 5 times, sometimes during the 10-day period, you get 2 points. And rarely 1 to 2 times in a 10-day period, you got 1 point. So you're going to write down for this answer 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and you'll do this 11 other times, and then you will tally up your points. And I hope that makes sense. If not, please let me know. So I have one piece of evidence for each of these. Please, again, know that there is so much information on all of these that, it's kind of now over the last 10 years, so much research has been published. It's quite fascinating. I've already given you one book, Carol Dweck's, a growth mindset. I highly recommend Joff Coleman. Talent is overrated. I don't know how many athletes or former athletes are on the call, but this will change your mind about when you use the word talent. I try to not use the word talent anymore because Colvin's research has really changed my perception of it all. And the last sentence of his book is summarized here. Talent, IQ, and experience, once thought to be the 3 pillars of success, and then ask yourself, well, how often do I say talent, IQ, and experience, play a less important role than previously thought when compared to one's drive, decisiveness, the ability to make a decision, that's a whole other workshop, and grit, the ability to pound it out decade after decade. Great performance is available to you and to everyone. And that's the last phrase of the book. Great performance is available to you and to everyone. And he spends the entire book explaining it in great detail. And no one is talented. I don't see that anyone is talented at all. What I see is the work that they had to do year after year, probably for 2 or 3 decades, to get to where they wanted to be. Now, there's also something called the 10,000 hour rule, and I could have given you Malcolm Gladwell's book in the 3rd or 4th chapter that he talks about the 10,000 hour rule. It's along the same lines, right? That anyone can achieve greatness if you're willing to put in the time. Now, can I be a great NBA basketball player? No, of course not. I can be a better basketball player than I am now. I mean, I would need 2 new knees at my age to do that. But you see what I'm getting at. This is a growth mindset reads this and it says, yep, I get it. And if you want to learn something new all the time, and if you said often or always, you're most likely in agreement with this, is my takeaway. Second question. I am comfortable with failing to grow. I should have just stopped with the to grow. I should have edited this a little bit better. I'm comfortable with failing. I know a lot of people, and it comes from their parents. They are not allowed to fail. They can't take a class. They can't get below an A. I mean, a B plus is unacceptable. I always tell my students, go take a class you can't possibly pass. Go take a class you can't possibly pass, and you will work so hard. You will struggle with that. You'll be in the professor's office every other day, and that's the class you're going to remember the rest of your life. You're not. What are you going to remember? You take a class, you get an A. You could do it in your sleep. Take a class where you struggle. Where you struggle. You're talking. Well, you're not talking, but I'm a guy that when I was, and I'll try to pepper my own personal stories because it helps people kind of relate a little bit better. When I finished the PhD, I got my PhD in history. I needed something to do. I'm a challenge personality and I have a growth mindset. So I had always wanted to do triathlons. Well, if you know anything about triathlons, you have to be able to swim. That's the first leg of a triathlon. And I could not put my feet in a pool without literally having a severe anxiety attack, like severe anxiety attack. And at the time, my wife and I had two young children. They wanted dad in the pool. Thank God their mother went into the pool. I could not go into the pool. So that was an added thing of, I don't want to be that dad that can't go into the pool with his kids. So I found a swim coach who was more patient than I could ever ask for and worked with me basically day after day for a whole year. And almost a year to the day, I did my first triathlon and then did triathlons for a number of years. So I say all that to say, do you know how humiliating it was for like a 32-year-old man to be in a pool with little kids that were diving off the diving board and I was holding on to my young swim coach, like thoroughly humiliated and vulnerable because she said, if I let you go, you will drown. We're in 10 feet of water. You know, you will drown. I was comfortable looking like a failure. And if I wasn't, I never would have been able to overcome. Well, you don't overcome fear, you learn to manage it. I learned to manage my fear of water by learning to swim. So I am comfortable with failing. And I can give you so many other examples of life where I failed, right? A lot of times failure is when other people say no to you. If you're familiar with Chicken Soup for the Soul, Jack Canfield tells a story that 100 publishers rejected him. They're like, yeah, this book doesn't make any sense. We don't want it. So he went to this publishing conference and he found a little publisher, and good for them for taking a chance on unknown authors, Canfield and Hansen. And they said, yes, we'll publish it. And so Canfield always tells people, if someone says no, just say next. But that's a growth mindset. A fixed mindset says, all right, well, it is what it is. Guess no one wants to publish my book. Yeah, okay. That's not wrong. It's just not the right mindset that's going to allow you to get to where you want to go. And so I've stopped using language like, well, that's the wrong mindset to have. You're wrong. It's not wrong. It's just a mindset it's going to prohibit you from getting to where you want to go. Because wrong designates, it's a label. And I don't want to make anyone feel bad. Yeah, you're wrong. That's not good to say. It's not healthy to say in any relationship. But it is productive to say there is another way of thinking about this. I respect your mindset. I understand it, but there is another way of thinking about it. And would you allow me to explain it? And then that opens up the relationship, right, to take it to the next level if they're willing to listen. Sometimes fixed mindset people, they don't want to listen. I get it. So again, are you comfortable with failing? How often do you tell yourself that in a 10-day period? So you have your second score now. Third one, I embrace and seek out challenges. How often do you do that? And I know you work full time. You're probably raising children. You might be caring for elderly parents or sick family members. Michael, I don't have time to embrace and seek out challenges. Okay, I hear you. I do. I 100% hear you. I'm just asking the question. How often do you embrace and seek out challenges? I didn't say how often do you make excuses not to embrace and seek out challenges. Sorry. Sorry about that. Losing my voice. Lucky for all of you. I embrace and seek out challenges. You know, when Howard Schultz was looking for investors for Starbucks, 89%, 89% said no one's going to pay $5 for a cup of coffee. They just rejected him. 217 out of 242. They said, there's no way. This doesn't make any sense to me. In fact, Howard Schultz, when he's going around trying to get funding for the first round of Starbucks decades ago. His father-in-law came home. I came over to their house. He and his wife, newly married. Sorry. And the father-in-law says, Howard, let's come out and take a walk. So Howard and his father-in-law go out for a walk. And the father-in-law says, look, Howard, this dream of Starbucks, this is stupid. My daughter is pregnant with our first grandchild. Get a job, get a steady paycheck, and knock this nonsense off. Howard goes back into his house. Father-in-law leaves. The wife said, what did he say? And Howard told her. And Howard Schultz's wife said, no, do not listen to my father. You will find the money and you will make this happen. So it's really important who your life partner is, right? Because if she had said, you know what, he's right, I'm nervous, you don't have a steady paycheck, I don't understand why anyone would buy a $5 cup of coffee either. Can you please go get a job? He said he would have stopped. He would have stopped. There would be no Starbucks as a result of that conversation. So how often do you embrace and seek out challenges? I persist over the long term to succeed. And this is one of my favorite stories. You may know Bryan Cranston, the actor there in that picture. Bryan Cranston, and it took 25 years to make it as an actor. And this is not an outlier. This is kind of the norm for actors if you really study their backgrounds. He actually wanted to be a cop. He and his brother were enrolled in a political science degree in Los Angeles Valley College. He takes one acting class, and in the first assignment that he has in this acting class, he's partnered with a woman. They're on a park bench and they have to kiss. It's the opening scene. Like there's no words. It's just here's a couple kissing, and then the dialogue starts. Now he's 19. He's nervous. He's embarrassed, humiliated. Like, I don't know who this young woman is. What am I doing? I can't kiss her. And so she grabs him and starts kissing because it's an acting class, and that's what the scene called for. And during the kissing, she's tapping his knee to say, start the scene. You have the first line. And so he was hooked at that point. He was hooked. Now, from 1976 to like 1983, he's getting jobs. In 1983, he lands a lead role in one of the main roles in a soap opera, Loving. I don't even know if that's on. I don't know soap operas. And in 1985, he gets fired from the soap opera. He thought he had made it. He put his dues in from 76, to 83. No. He gets fired. So he's in New York. It's where they were filming it. He was living there. He gets fired. He goes through Central Park and he sees people running through Central Park, and it's the New York City Marathon. And he tells the story in this interview. I said to myself, oh, look at these stupid people running a marathon. I could never do that. And then he stopped himself. And he said, well, wait, how do I know I can't do that? I've never done it. I've never tried running. He wasn't a runner, wasn't an athlete. And then he committed himself. And the following year, he ran the New York City Marathon and completed it. And he's run several since. How does that parlay into his career? That gave him the confidence to move back to California. And then again, through another decade, 12, 14 years, if you know Seinfeld, he was a dentist on Seinfeld. He had, some reoccurring roles there. Still didn't make it until 2000 when he became Hal on Malcolm in the Middle. And then eventually Breaking Bad skyrockets his career. It took him 26 years to succeed. I persist over the long term to succeed. How often do you remind yourself of that during any 10-day period? Next one. What about 5? Got to move a little bit faster here. I take responsibility and never blame others. I take responsibility. How often do you blame others? Now, there are times when I'm weak, I'm feeling sorry for myself, and I will blame others. I'm not, you're not a perfect mindset person. You're just not perfect, right? I take responsibility and never blame others. Most weeks, I'm an always. Some weeks, mm, I'm an often. Just the way it is. Bruce Lee has this great quote, which I love. And he talks about the medicine for his suffering was within him. He had to take responsibility. And he's, now I see I will never find the light unless, like a candle, I am my own fuel. So when I talk to people, I kind of get them to circle back and say, well, what role did you play in this? And oftentimes they haven't thought about it because it's way easier to blame others. To tell yourself, well, I kind of have the answer all along, it's within me. It's a little bit of a challenge. So, how often do you take responsibility and never blame others? Never, rarely, sometimes, often, always. Give yourself a score. I seek out another way to move forward. Charlize Theron was making this movie Bombshell about the Roger Ailes at Fox News and all of the the sexual harassment cases. And 2 weeks before filming was to begin, the major studio backed out. But to her credit, within 24 hours, Bronze Studio went forward and said, "You know what, Charlize, we're going to put the money for this movie." And as she said, some movies are just meant to be, and the universe was not going to let this one not happen. So at the last minute, the rug may be pulled out from under you. What are you going to do? How are you going to respond? You're going to find another way forward, or you're going to blame others? Seventh one, I continue to look for improvement. And Jim Rohn, one of the best-selling authors of all time in the self-help, genre, his mentor told him, if you want to succeed in your career, you got to work harder on yourself than on your job. You have to. I'm always, always asking people, how can I improve? Tonight, this is over. When Kate and I either talk later tonight or tomorrow or the next week, I'll say, all right, you thought about it. How could I improve? Even if it's 1%, I look for improvement. I hold myself accountable. How often do you continue to look for improvement in a 10-day period? Always give yourself 4 points, often 3, and so on. I allow myself time and effort to succeed. Juliette Lewis, is this actor at 14 years of age. She declared herself free from her parents, basically, so she could act in a lot more roles. And what she said is, you have to apply discipline and get out of your own way. And I often put people through that as a similar question is like, all right, you're here and you're in the situation. Are you in your own way? Sometimes I know I'm in my own way because I overthink everything. So I have to go find someone that I trust to process it with, and they'll tell me, yep, you're overthinking it. So give yourself the time and effort you need to succeed, but make sure that you don't stand in your way. Right? That's extremely important. So how often do you allow yourself time and effort to succeed? Always, often, sometimes, and so forth. I learn from and appreciate my mistakes. Many of you may have seen this quote. I love this one by Michael Jordan. He gets cut from he didn't make the varsity team as a sophomore because he was only 5'11". So he went down, he had to play on JV. So he said, all right, well, I'll show them. And he was, he had a lot of games as a sophomore in high school where he was scoring 40 points a game. Over that summer between sophomore and junior year, he grows 4 inches. And then he does really well at junior and senior in high school and goes to UNC Chapel Hill for his college career. And we know the rest. But this quote is great because he said, look how many times I failed. I made mistakes all the time. And that's why I've won. I always look for, when I look at managers and how they treat people, I ask the people under them, how often are you encouraged to make a mistake? How often are you encouraged to try something new? I mean, let's face it, higher ed is an industry where something new, I mean, it's an anathema. I mean, we've always done it like this, so we can't do anything new. Well, maybe that's one of the reasons why the state of the industry is the state in which it finds itself. I'm going to train my brain how to do this. How often do you tell yourself this? This one comes from Novak Djokovic, the Serbian tennis player. My goodness, he wins. Like he's like many people would say the number one tennis player of all time. That's always up to debate when we do those things. Um, at 20 years of age, he wins his first major tournament, right, in 2008. What most people, that's the tip of the iceberg that's above the water. What you don't know is for 17 years, his father took out loans. They weren't rich. His father took out loans for him to train. He practiced on an old uh, decommissioned swimming pool during the Yugoslav wars. He didn't have the greatest training facilities his entire life. He figured out a way to keep training, and his parents borrowed money. And he said, and he does a great 60 Minutes interview where, I forget who it was from 60 Minutes was saying, oh, well, this is it comes very natural to you. And Novak stopped him. He said, no, 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 no. I train my brain the way I train my body. And his quote is, there's a storm inside of me on the court. Now, you don't see the storm, but it's there. And I'm battling that to stay in the moment, to do what I need to do to win the match. And he's trained his brain to do it. So this is the question here is, I'm going to train my brain how to do this, whatever this is. How often do you say this? Another way of phrasing this is, and this would be its own workshop, is I'm going to train my brain to be more specific. What is it? Be a better public speaker. Great. What are you doing to be a better public speaker? So you can do this in the general way, which is this question. You can ask yourself a more specific question, but you can train your brain how to do something. That's a growth mindset. So along similar lines, I can absolutely learn how to do this. So here we're looking at Sujatha Gidla. Sujatha Gidla is this amazing woman, amazing woman. So in the 1980s, she finishes her undergraduate degree, goes to graduate school, does not like how one of the engineering professors is failing all of the students from the lower caste in India. She's the only woman that goes on strike against this engineering professor. I mean, there are men. She's the only woman. She is taken away and hidden, captured for 3 months, tortured, gets tuberculosis, nearly dies. Luckily, her mother hires a lawyer. Then they work it all off. They work it all out. She gets released, and she starts her career in India. She then comes to the United States, works as a software programming engineer for a Bank of New York, gets laid off in the '08 financial crisis. And then she says, I want to do something that only men usually do. So what does she do? She becomes a conductor on the New York New York subway system, a conductor of trains. During her lunch breaks and on her, when she's not working, but specifically during her lunch breaks, before and after her shifts, she writes Ants Among Elephants, an award-winning book about the caste system in modern India. So when people say, "Oh, I don't have time to do something," and I have dozens of people like this that work a full-time job and still wrote a book, did poetry, painted, did sculpture, whatever the case is. There's plenty of examples out there. So I'm really impressed by Sujatha Gidla's life experience. And then finally, I will move on to Plan B, Plan C, and so on. And this is the last book that I will give you. I would recommend Angela Duckworth's Grit. And grit is very much the opposite of talent, IQ, and experience. It's this is where grit becomes, I'm Bryan Cranston. I have what it takes to last 26 years before I make it. Bryan Cranston got his license to do weddings so that he was still somehow acting. He didn't want to leave the field of acting. So for 26 years, when he wasn't acting, he was, marrying people to make some money on the side. He figured out his plan B, his plan C, and so on, even when he got fired, from the soap opera. You need to figure out, okay, life threw me this curveball. What do I do? Now, you can feel sorry for yourself, and I have. I usually give myself X number of minutes, hours, or days, and then I move on to plan B, plan C. So that's where we're at. So now what I ask you to do as we, wind down here is add up your score. The highest is 4 times 12, I think is 48. So that's the growth mindset part of the continuum. If your score is closer to fixed mindset, it's not good or bad. It's not pass fail. It's just where are you at? Most people fall between 24 and 36, by the way. They realize that, oh, sometimes I have a fixed mindset or lean towards that. Other times I lean towards the growth mindset. That is perfectly normal. That makes a lot of sense. And then finally, I will just give a nod to what you should be aware of. There are 3 things or groups of people to watch out for: fixed mindset parents, fixed mindset partners, wives, husbands, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, and fixed mindset friends. You now know a little bit about growth mindset. Maybe some of you knew a lot more before this workshop and just added to it, hopefully. So when you're talking to your parents, your partners, your friends, and you say a growth mindset statement, watch how they respond. I have learned that as I said earlier, my relationships have gotten a lot better because I will just toss out a growth mindset concept. And someone might say, well, what are you doing that for? You can't do that. Wait, what? What? No, you're not going to learn how to swim. It doesn't make any sense. What are you doing? I'm also a certified yoga instructor. When I stopped running, probably 10 years ago, I walked into a yoga shala and I said, I don't even know. I know how to spell yoga. I don't think I know anything else about it. And people are like, you don't know anything about yoga. You can't learn yoga at your age. I'm like, okay, well, that's your opinion. I'm going to do it. I see all the time adults who are struggling because their parents have a fixed mindset and they want them to go down a certain road or don't believe their son or daughter can go down a specific road. But the child could be 35. The child really wants to venture down that road, but doesn't want to disappoint their mother or father because the mother and father have a fixed mindset. Or the husband or the wife, the partner, doesn't believe in the other partner. I see it all the time. And you probably do too. So I would just watch out for those fixed mindset people in your life. And I thank you so very much. This is my email. It was an absolute pleasure. Sorry for my voice a little bit there. It's 6:54. I wanted to end early for questions. And Kate, take it away. I'll actually stop screen sharing so
Awesome.
I can see people.
Well, first, thank you so much, Dr. Edmondson. I'm just
Sure.
looking in the chat right now. And we had a great question, and it's, are you born with a fixed or growth mindset, or do you
Yeah,
learn
that's
those traits?
yeah, that's a great question. Um, that's like saying, like, is it your genetics or is your environment, right? And I think depending upon the research you read, you can probably find evidence that answers both. I would, if I had to choose one, I would say you are born with the clean slate. Was it Rousseau, like the philosopher, right? You're born, with a clean slate, and your environment determines the path of your mindset. So you have to. I was very lucky. I'm a first gen college grad. Like I didn't have any business going to college, but I surrounded myself with people that said, "You're going to go to college. You don't have a choice." Then I was an undergraduate, and I was surrounded by people that said, "You're going to go get a master's degree." Then I was surrounded by people at Villanova that said, "You got to go get a PhD." I'm like, okay, okay. I had people that showed me that a growth mindset was possible if I remained open to it. I was scared, I was petrified, I was everything, but I just kept moving forward. So, yeah, I think you can find evidence definitely for both. I would argue, though, that your environment and who you surround yourself with dictates how you talk to yourself, and how you talk to yourself determines your mindset. I hope I made that clear. Sorry.
Absolutely. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to unmute yourself or
Oh,
type in
I'm
the chat
sorry, Kate.
box.
Yeah, so
You're
Ken
okay.
said I have found that as I age, my mindset has transitioned
Yeah.
from highly growth to more fixed. That does happen. And in fact, in Bryan Cranston, in that interview, and you can just Google the Bryan Cranston interview. If you watch this on your own, you'll be able to see that interview in the presentation. Bryan Cranston says, like, as you get older, we compartmentalize things. I do this, I don't do this. He said the way to approach life is to always be a beginner. Always be a beginner. So when is the last time you began anything? Let me tell you, I'm absolutely fine making a fool out of myself. When I walked into that yoga shala, I thought yoga was about stretching. Yoga has nothing to do with stretching. I mean, I learned so much, and how when I teach it, it has absolutely nothing to do with touching your toes. That's the worst form of yoga instruction ever. You've got to be willing to be a fool and to start over. And most people, as they age, they don't want to, or they get tired, right? Or they're like, I'm just good at this. I want to keep doing this. And I would say, all right, well, then go do something that you've never done before. So, Ken, I hear you loud and clear. A lot of people, they just, maybe life beats them down. They just give up. Like, yep, life has beaten me down. I've been laid off. I had horrible things happen to my health, my family, and I no longer believe that I can control my destiny. I get it. I understand it. Um, you just have to come to grips with it and realize that, okay, I have a fixed mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, I actually think, to be quite honest, that's you're stepping on the road of having a growth mindset. If you know what kind of mindset you have, you can then tell yourself, "Wait a minute, I know I have a fixed mindset. Why don't I switch that thinking for just today, just for this moment, and see where it takes me?" And I know it's scary, though we're at 6:58. I don't want to keep talking. Any other questions, Kate? Any thoughts, Kate?
Vincent had a great comment. I feel like in today's informational era, we are learning more and more on daily basis. Um, my absence, it's intentional or not.
Hmm.
I think that's a really important comment.
Okay,
Hi there, how are you?
I'm good. Can I just add a comment?
Absolutely.
I'm Michael. I
Hi.
feel like
Thank you.
when like this was a great presentation, by the way. I liked it.
Oh,
And
thank you. Thank you.
I feel like when people like have a fixed mindset, it's because and like how you said like last time, it's like you make a growth mindset statement and
Mhm,
people have a fixed mindset. It's like
mhm.
they say those things because they're trying to live vicariously through you and they
Yeah.
can't envision themselves doing that. So it's like I have this one example. It's like I guess when I was going for like a higher a higher degree,
Mhm.
I was saying that I want to go for my MBA. I want to go for my MBA. You had some people saying, well, it's rigorous. Do you really want to do it? Do you really want to do it? And then I guess when I put in the labor, I actually put in the work in the 4 years and I actually accomplished it. That's when I started to see like the garnering the respect because I did something that was so labor intensive
Mhm.
and I walked through I guess like metaphorically, I walked through the fire
Yeah.
and came out
Yeah.
unscathed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what that's what a growth, that's a really great analogy. And Charles Bukowski is this really off the wall poet from decades ago, and he has a poem called Walking Through the Fire. And I absolutely adore those words because that's what you have to do. I mean, and people all around you may be laughing at you, may be telling you, no, it can't be done. What are you doing? And you have to ignore it all. You have to ignore it all and you got to just go and go. And it may take you 10 years and it doesn't matter. It took me 8.5 years to get my PhD in history. The national average was 8 years and I worked full time. Well, I didn't raise my two kids. My wife did, thank God. But yeah, I knew it was going to be a slog. I knew it was going to be a slog of 8 years at a minimum. Okay. Okay. And the thing is, and Uzoma, hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. Like you
Correct.
did that. You did that once. So now the next thing that comes along in your life, you're like, I got this. I already know hard work. I know what it means to be gritty. I know what it means to be determined over a long period of time to slug it out. I can do it again. And that's a mindset. You train your mind whatever comes my way, I am going to conquer. It's 7:01, Kate. Shut me down.
Excellent. Well, we want to be mindful of everyone's time.
Yes.
I did see a comment at the end, and
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining us. So,
Thank
I
you,
hope you found
everybody.
this session useful, and we look forward to seeing you at our second session, which will be on Wednesday, February 21st at 6 p.m. That registration is now live. You'll receive that link in a follow-up email tomorrow morning. And a big thank you to Dr. Michael Edmondson for sharing his expertise with us. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening and looking forward to seeing you in February.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you.
good
Have a
night.
good night now. Bye-bye.